It started with a shock I'll never forget. One day I was enjoying a quiet evening in my perfect neighborhood, and the next, everything erupted into chaos. 96 homes, my land, had been claimed by the HOA, built over while I watched in disbelief. They thought I would back down, thought I would give up. But what they didn't realize was how far I was willing to go to reclaim what was mine. By the time the final hammer fell, the rules they enforced so mercilessly would come crashing down around them. And the question that haunts me still, how many people let injustice unfold before standing up? Life in the neighborhood had always felt safe, predictable, and almost cinematic in its perfection. Manicured lawns stretched in neat lines, white picket fences glimmered in the morning sun, and the subtle hum of daily life whispered peace through every street corner. For us, it was more than just a community, it was home. I, Ethan Miller, worked long hours trying to build a future for my family, while my wife, Laura, focused on preparing for the arrival of our first child. Our days were simple yet fulfilling. Morning coffee on the porch, children playing in the yard, neighbors greeting each other with polite waves, and evenings filled with calm walks along the quiet streets. There was a rhythm here, one we believed would never be disrupted. At first, the HOA was an almost invisible presence, a shadow in the background that appeared only when minor procedural matters arose. Notices about trash bins, reminders about parking restrictions, or general guidelines about lawn care felt routine. Compliance was easy, and there was comfort in knowing that rules were in place to maintain the community's order and harmony. Yet, as is often the case, even the most serene environments harbor the seeds of tension beneath their calm surface. Then came her, Linda Parker. In a neighborhood ruled by consistency and conformity, Linda didn't just enforce rules, she embodied them. Clipboard in hand, she moved with the precision of someone who believed the slightest deviation from the HOA's bylaws was a personal affront. It wasn't the first time we had noticed her, but it was the first time her presence carried a weight heavier than mere curiosity. She observed, she measured, she judged. It began subtly, a lingering glance at our mailbox, a faint frown when our trash bins were slightly misaligned, a whispered comment as we passed by. At the time, we told ourselves it was harmless, maybe even helpful. But subtlety is deceptive. What started as minor inconveniences slowly accumulated into a pattern. A note about a vehicle parked incorrectly, a comment on the timing of lawn watering, reminders about the precise color shades allowed for outdoor decor. Each interaction added tension. There was an unspoken assertion behind every word, a quiet assertion of control that left us feeling scrutinized. At first we adjusted, we complied. We hoped that by adhering strictly to the rules, the peace we cherished would remain unbroken. Evenings became quieter, not from calm, but from cautiousness. We avoided leaving the car in certain spots, moved our trash bins at specific times, and found ourselves double-checking the height of our hedges. Our compliance, however, did little to quell the invisible pressure. Laura noticed it first, the way Linda's eyes lingered too long, the subtle shifts in tone when she spoke to us versus others, the deliberate timing of her inspections. Something was off, and the unease grew. though we still clung to the idea that following the rules was enough. Our neighbors seemed blissfully unaware, or perhaps unwilling to confront the silent tension. Small gatherings felt strained, conversations were polite but guarded, and the underlying sense of surveillance lingered like a shadow over our daily routines. In our home, the comfort we had once taken for granted began to erode. Every knock at the door, every note slipped under the welcome mat, carried a weight of implied judgment. The first letter that truly unsettled me arrived on a sunny afternoon. Polished, official, and sealed with the HOA's emblem, it claimed a violation I didn't believe existed. The wording was vague, the reasoning convoluted, and the suggested penalties minor yet threatening in tone. It was a turning point, subtle yet ominous. For the first time, we realized that these rules, which had promised order, could also be wielded as weapons. From that point onward, the neighborhood transformed in our eyes. What had once been a sanctuary of trust became a landscape of calculated oversight. The sense of security that had defined our daily life was now punctuated by caution. Each decision, from where to park to how to decorate, became a potential trigger for confrontation. And in the background, Linda Parker's meticulous observations continued unabated, her presence both visible and invisible, a constant reminder that peace in our community was conditional, fragile, and perhaps far more precarious than we had ever imagined. Little did we know that this quiet unease, this creeping observation, would soon escalate into a conflict that would test not only our patience, but our very understanding of fairness, authority, and justice within the community. The first official notice came with a polite yet unmistakably pointed warning. A violation for a fence color that had been approved years earlier. I attempted to clarify, to explain the documentation proving our compliance, but each response from the HOA was more bureaucratic and dismissive than the last. Notices multiplied, fines were imposed, deadlines arrived with impossible demands, and the tone shifted from administrative to punitive. Laura and I began living in a state of perpetual vigilance, monitoring every detail, aware that one misstep could trigger a cascade of harassment.
And then the construction started. 96 homes built over what was indisputably my land, yet authorized by the HOA as if I had willingly signed away my property rights. I watched in disbelief, my frustration boiling. Meetings were held, letters written, lawyers consulted, yet the HOA moved like a juggernaut, confident in its ability to bend the law to its advantage. Linda Parker became the face of this force, a symbol of unyielding bureaucracy and personal vendetta. Neighbors whispered, divided between fear and curiosity. Some sided with me quietly, wary of retaliation. Others remained neutral, unwilling to challenge what seemed inevitable. I documented everything, recording dates, capturing photographs, and collecting witness testimonies. Each attempt to halt the construction legally was met with delay tactics, appeals, and procedural roadblocks designed to exhaust my resolve.
Even our home life was affected. Sleep became a luxury, meals were quiet, conversations strained. Laura, though supportive, grew increasingly anxious, worried for our future, for the safety of our family, and for the overwhelming weight of injustice pressing down on our shoulders. I felt trapped between the desire for immediate confrontation and the need to build an airtight legal case. The weeks stretched into months. The community's serenity was replaced by tension, frustration, and anger. The construction continued, each day a stark reminder of the power imbalance. Yet, in the midst of despair, I formulated a plan, a patient, strategic approach that would turn the tables. I would let them finish the construction, appearing passive, while quietly preparing to strike in court. The day of the hearing arrived with a surreal calm. The courtroom, filled with legal representatives and HOA board members, felt charged with tension. I presented the evidence meticulously: land deeds, surveyor reports, correspondence, photographs, and witness statements. Every document, every detail, meticulously proving the overreach of the HOA and the unauthorized construction on my property. The board members shifted in their seats, unease growing as the gravity of their actions became undeniable. Linda Parker, once confident and imposing, now seemed exposed. Her stern composure faltered as cross-examinations revealed inconsistencies, bias, and blatant disregard for legal procedure. Each point I made, each fact presented, chipped away at the authority she had wielded so mercilessly. When the judge delivered the ruling, a mixture of relief, triumph, and validation washed over me. The deed was reinstated, the construction deemed unlawful, and the HOA was held accountable for their overreach. The culmination of months of stress, strategy, and meticulous documentation had led to this decisive moment. In the aftermath, the neighborhood slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy, but the lessons lingered. The HOA's authority had been reined in, policies revised, and oversight strengthened. Linda Parker, once untouchable, faced consequences, both legal and social. Neighbors, once silent, now spoke openly about abuses they had witnessed, fostering a culture of accountability. For our family, the experience reinforced the importance of vigilance, persistence, and standing up to injustice. Our home regained its peace, our property rights were secure, and a community, though wary, had learned the critical lesson that rules exist to protect, not to oppress. The story serves as a stark reminder. Unchecked authority can devastate lives quietly, but with courage, patience, and strategy, balance and justice can prevail. And the final question remains, not about what happened here, but how many other neighborhoods remain silent, waiting for the right moment to assert their own power and demand fairness.